Commander Lyra stood at the helm of the Star Waver, her crystalline battle armor catching the light of Earth's sun. The third planet of this unremarkable system shouldn't have demanded her attention, yet something about it pulled at her. Perhaps it was the swirling blue-white clouds, or the vast green continents that reminded her of ancient tales of Artemis Prime, before their civilization had covered it in cities of living metal. "Status report," she commanded, her voice carrying the authority earned through centuries of military service. "Stealth systems optimal. Commander." Lieutenant Lyra responded from her station. "The primitive's detection systems remain blind to our presence." Lyra nodded, satisfied. The Artemisian High Command had dispatched her best stealth vessel for this reconnaissance mission, determined to understand why this backwater world had suddenly begun broadcasting complex signals into space. Their long-range scans had detected rapid technological advancement, far too rapid for a natural progression. "Begin atmospheric descent," Lyra ordered. "Maintain radio silence sound." The ship shuddered violently, throwing her against the command chair. Red warning lights flooded the bridge. "Report," she shouted over the blaring alarms. "Unknown energy signature." Lyra's fingers flew across the control surface. It's coming from inside the ship." "Impossible." The Star Waver represented the pinnacle of Artemisian technology. Nothing on this primitive world should have been able to affect their systems, let alone penetrate their defenses. "Engineering reports critical power fluctuations," another officer called out. "Gravitational stabilizers failing." Lyra's mind raced through options as the ship began to spiral toward the planet's surface. Reroute emergency power to the inertial dampeners. Brace for impact. The Star Waver carved through Earth's atmosphere, its once elegant form now a burning meteor. Lyra caught glimpses of mountains, forests, and lakes through the view screen before they crashed into a remote valley with devastating force. When the dust settled, Lyra pulled herself from the wreckage, checking her crew for injuries. 5 of her 8-member team had survived, though the ship was beyond repair. Their quantum communicator, their only link to home, lay in pieces. "Secure the perimeter," she ordered, ignoring the pain in her side. "We can't let the locals discover." "Commander," Lyra called out urgently. "Ground transport approaching from the north." Lyra raised her particle rifle, its familiar weight offering little comfort in this alien environment. Through the trees, she spotted a rugged vehicle moving toward them. It stopped 100 meters away, and a single figure emerged. The human was tall for his species, wearing what appeared to be some kind of ranger uniform. He moved with careful precision, hands clearly visible. "Hello," he called out in his primitive language, which their universal translators rendered perfectly. "I'm Ranger David Chen. I saw your crash. Is anyone hurt?" Lyra's finger tightened on the trigger. Their mission protocols were clear: no contact with indigenous life forms. But with their ship destroyed and no way to call for extraction, those protocols seemed increasingly irrelevant. "Stay where you are," she commanded, stepping into view. To his credit, the human showed remarkable composure upon seeing her alien form. His eyes widened slightly, but his voice remained steady. "I have medical training and emergency supplies in my vehicle. Please, let me help." "Commander," Lyra whispered, "our atmospheric analyzers are damaged. We don't know if this air is safe for prolonged exposure." Lyra studied the human carefully. Everything she knew about his species, their violence, their chaos, their primitive emotions, told her to eliminate this witness and find another solution. Yet something in his calm demeanor gave her pause. "Approach slowly," she finally ordered, keeping her weapon ready. Any sudden moves will be your last. David nodded, retrieving a medical kit from his vehicle with deliberate movements. As he drew closer, Lyra noticed details her scans hadn't revealed: the intelligence in his eyes, the confident set of his shoulders, the complete lack of fear she would have expected from a primitive encountering advanced beings. "I'm guessing you'd prefer to avoid attention from authorities," he said quietly, kneeling to treat a gash on Lieutenant Lyra's arm. "This valley is part of my patrol route. I can help keep this quiet, at least until you figure out your next move." Lyra exchanged glances with her officers. They were trained warriors of the galaxy's most advanced civilization, yet here they stood, dependent on the goodwill of a species they had dismissed as barely sentient. "Why would you help us?" she demanded. David finished bandaging Lyra's arm before answering. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because I've always believed we're not alone in the universe. I just didn't expect first contact to happen during my morning patrol." For the first time in her centuries of service, Commander Lyra found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about humanity. This was supposed to be a simple reconnaissance mission. Instead, it was becoming something far more complicated and far more interesting. The mountain sunrise painted the wreckage of the Star Waver in shades of gold, its broken form now concealed beneath camouflage netting in a remote corner of Ranger Station 17. David Chen worked methodically through the ship's damaged systems, his understanding of the alien technology growing with each passing day. Commander Lyra observed him from the station's observation deck, her violet eyes narrowed in concentration. A week had passed since their crash, and the human continued to surprise her. His grasp of their quantum mechanics, while primitive, showed an intuitive understanding she hadn't thought possible from his species. The power core's crystalline matrix is adapting to Earth's electromagnetic field, David explained, pointing to a holographic diagnostic display. "If we can stabilize the resonance patterns, we might be able to restore basic functions." Lieutenant Lyra snorted dismissively. "Impossible. The matrix requires precise calibration that your technology simply can't." The damaged core pulsed with sudden life, its deep purple glow filling the makeshift repair bay. David stepped back, a slight smile playing at his lips. "You were saying?" Lyra felt an unfamiliar sensation in her chest. Pride, but not for her crew. This human had accomplished in days what her best engineers had deemed impossible. More disturbing still, she found herself looking forward to their conversations, his questions about her world making her see it through fresh eyes. "Commander," Lyra approached, her voice low. "The long-range sensors are detecting increased activity in high orbit. The High Command must have noticed our silence." The news should have brought relief. Instead, Lyra felt an unexpected wave of concern. Protocol demanded they signal their location immediately, but the intelligence they'd gathered about humanity painted a very different picture from their initial assumptions. "David," she called out, "we need to talk." He followed her outside, where the Montana wilderness stretched endlessly before them. The beauty of this unspoiled world struck her anew, so different from the engineered perfection of Artemis Prime. "Your people are coming," she stated bluntly. "To rescue you." His tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Initially, perhaps. But what we've learned here—" She hesitated. "My civilization has existed for millennia. We've guided the development of countless worlds, ensuring they follow the proper path to enlightenment. Those who resist are corrected." David absorbed this, his expression thoughtful. "And now you're having doubts. Your species is chaotic, emotional, unpredictable. By all our metrics, you should be centuries away from quantum mechanics, yet here you are, repairing technology you've never seen before. It defies everything we believe about civilizational development. Maybe that's because you're measuring progress by your standards, not ours. He stepped closer, and Lyra found herself acutely aware of his presence. Humanity isn't perfect, far from it. But our chaos, our emotions, they drive us to innovate, to try impossible things simply because we don't know they're impossible. A distant rumble drew their attention skyward. High above, a brilliant light cut through the clouds, an Artemisian scout ship. "They'll begin with diplomacy," Lyra said quietly. "But if Earth resists, then we'll face it together." David's hand found hers, warm and steady. "Your crash landing here wasn't an accident, Lyra. Something brought us together, and I think both our worlds will be better for it." The scout ship grew larger, its crystalline form catching the sunlight. Lyra squeezed David's hand, our decision made. She would not let her people destroy what they didn't understand. Earth deserved a chance to forge its own path, and perhaps teach the Artemisians a few things about the power of chaos and emotion along the way. As the ship descended, Lyra thought of the ancient texts in the Great Library, tales of how her people had once been different, passionate, creative, alive. Somewhere along their march to perfection, they had lost something precious. Looking at David, she wondered if perhaps humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy would be showing them how to find it again. The Artemisian diplomatic vessel hung above New York like a crystalline sword, its presence dominating news channels worldwide. Inside the UN Security Council chamber, Lyra watched her people's ambassador deliver what they called terms of integration. She knew better. It was an ultimatum. Earth's technological development has been deemed irregular, Ambassador Clara announced, her holographic form towering over the assembled leaders. "For the greater harmony of the galaxy, we will assume guidance of your civilization's advancement." David, now Earth's liaison to the Artemisians, stood. "With respect, Ambassador, we decline. Humanity charts its own course." Xera's perfect features showed no emotion, but Lyra recognized the subtle shift in her energy field. Contempt. "Your species is young, primitive. You cannot comprehend." "We comprehend perfectly," David interrupted. "You're afraid." The chamber fell silent. No one had ever dared speak to an Artemisian ambassador this way. "Your fear of chaos, of difference, has turned your civilization into a museum piece," David continued. "In the week since first contact, we've already improved your quantum core design. Not because we're superior, but because we're willing to try new approaches." Lyra stepped forward, knowing her next words would change everything. "He's right. Our crash wasn't an accident. Earth's electromagnetic field didn't disable our ship. Our ship adapted to it, evolved. Our technology is becoming more like them, dynamic, unpredictable, alive." Emergency alerts blared through the chamber. On the massive screens, dozens of Artemisian warships emerged from quantum space. "The High Command anticipated your corruption," Zara said coldly. "Cleansing protocols have been authorized." The first energy beams struck Earth's atmosphere, but instead of breaking through, they scattered in brilliant aurora displays. David smiled. "Did you think we wouldn't prepare? Those electromagnetic fields your ships love so much. We've learned to control them. Earth is now surrounded by a quantum catalyst net, using your own technology against you." Lyra watched in awe as the warship's crystalline forms began to pulse and change, their rigid structures flowing like liquid metal. The High Command's worst fear was being realized, their perfect technology infected by human chaos. "Commander," Lyra called from her station, "the quantum net is spreading through their fleet. Systems are evolving. You don't understand what you've done, Xura whispered, real emotion finally breaking through. Without control, without perfection. We become something new, Lyra finished. Something better. Look at your ships, Ambassador. They're not dying. They're transforming, just as our crashed vessel did. Evolution isn't a flaw. It's the universe's greatest strength. The warships above had become something extraordinary, organic crystalline forms that pulsed with previously unknown energies. The rigid hierarchy of the Artemisian fleet dissolved as each vessel adapted independently, creating a swirling dance of light and power. Now, David addressed Star, we can fight and destroy each other, or we can learn from each other. The choice is yours. Lyra moved to stand beside him, her hand finding his. In that moment, she saw the future clearly, not the sterile perfection of Artemis Prime, but a vibrant fusion of human passion and Artemisian technology. The galaxy would never be the same. And perhaps, she thought, watching her people's ships dance with newfound freedom above Earth's glowing atmosphere, that was exactly what it needed. The great hall of Artemis Prime sparkled with crystalline light as Lyra presented Earth's proposal to the High Council. After the failed invasion, both civilizations stood at a crossroads. David watched from the gallery, still amazed by the alien architecture that seemed to defy physics itself. The quantum evolution cannot be reversed, Lyra declared, but it can be guided. Earth offers an alliance, not submission, not control, but true partnership. The council members shifted uncomfortably on their living crystal thrones. First Speaker Nexus leaned forward, her ancient eyes studying Lyra intently. You were our finest commander. Now you advocate for chaos. I advocate for life, Lyra countered. Our civilization has stagnated, preserving perfection at the cost of growth. Look at what Earth's influence has already given us. Ships that adapt and heal, technology that evolves to meet new challenges. A commotion erupted at the chamber's entrance. General Thanix strode in, flanked by elite guards wearing new, aggressive variations of traditional armor. Enough of this heresy. David tensed, but Lyra's subtle hand signal kept him in place. She had warned him this might happen. The military hardliners wouldn't surrender control without a fight. The human contamination spreads, Thanix announced. Even now, our youth question the ancient ways. They speak of change, of emotion, of choice. He spat the words like venom. I will not allow millennia of perfection to be undone by primitives. The guards raised their weapons, but something extraordinary happened. Their crystalline armor, infused with Earth-influenced quantum technology, began to pulse with independent light. The soldiers looked at each other in confusion as their perfect uniforms transformed, becoming unique expressions of each individual's nature. You see, Lyra's voice rang through the hall. Even your most loyal soldiers cannot resist evolution. The change comes not from Earth, but from within us. We've forgotten our own history. Before the age of perfection, we too were creatures of passion and creativity. First Speaker Nexus rose, her ancient form radiating power. General Thanix, you demonstrate the truth of Commander Lyra's words. Your fear of change drives you to destroy what you could learn from. The ancient ways, Thanix began. The ancient ways speak of growth, of adaptation, Nexus interrupted. We interpreted them as a command to seek perfection, but perhaps we were wrong. Look. She gestured to the hall's crystal walls, which had begun to ripple with new patterns, organic shapes flowing through the once rigid structure. The entire chamber seemed to breathe with newfound life. Our world remembers, Nexus whispered. The humans haven't infected us with chaos. They've reminded us of who we once were. David finally stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's hopes. "Your perfection is beautiful," he said. "But imagine it combined with our creativity, our passion for discovery. Together, we could achieve things neither of our civilizations could dream of alone." Phanex raised his weapon in one last desperate act, but it had already transformed, its deadly energy crystals blooming into a garden of light. The general stared at his useless weapon, his perfect composure cracking to reveal long-suppressed emotions. "The Council recognizes Earth's proposal," Nexus declared. "The age of isolation is over. Let us learn from each other, grow together, and forge a future that honors both the perfection we achieved and the magnificent chaos we had forgotten." Lyra moved to David's side as the hall erupted in unprecedented displays of emotion. Artemisians allowing themselves to feel, to express, to change. The living crystal architecture pulsed with joy, its light containing colors never before seen in its perfect halls. "Still think we're primitives?" David whispered to her, smiling. "No," she replied, watching her world transform. "I think you're exactly what we needed to wake up." The quantum storm raged above Earth, a swirling maelstrom of crystalline energy, as the last holdouts of Artemisian traditionalists launched their desperate attack. Their ships, still locked in rigid perfection, clashed against the evolved fleet commanded by Lyra and Earth's unified defense forces. "The quantum barriers are holding," David reported from the bridge of the Harmony, their first joint species vessel. Its living crystal structure flowed around them, adapting to each challenge as naturally as breathing. "Their weapons can't penetrate our evolved shields." Lyra studied the tactical display, where streams of data merged with intuitive visual patterns. "They're attempting to establish a resonance cascade. They think they can force our ships back to their original state." The enemy fleet arranged itself in a perfect geometric pattern, their combined energy beams converging on a single point. The space between them began to crystallize, forming a massive structure of pure order. "That's not just a weapon," Lyra realized. "They're trying to create a quantum anchor, to lock down the natural evolution of space itself." David's hands flew across the organic crystal controls. "If they succeed, it won't just affect our ships. The entire Earth-Artemis quantum network will collapse. Everything we've built together. We won't let that happen." Lyra opened a channel to their combined fleet. "All ships, execute protocol metamorphosis." The evolved vessels responded instantly, their crystalline forms flowing like liquid starlight. But instead of forming a counter pattern, each ship began to pulse with its own unique rhythm. Human creativity merged with Artemisian precision as the fleet transformed into a living artwork of controlled chaos. The enemy's perfect crystal structure struggled to maintain cohesion as waves of quantum evolution washed over it. Where it tried to impose order, the combined fleet responded with infinite variation. Each attempt at control was met with 1,000 expressions of freedom. "Look," David breathed, pointing to the enemy ships. Their rigid forms had begun to crack, not with damage, but with new growth. Living crystal sprouted from their hulls like gardens of light. "Their crews," Lyra said softly. "They're remembering. The quantum evolution isn't just changing our ships. It's awakening our ancestral memories." Through the cracks in their perfect formations, ancient songs began to emanate, the lost music of Artemis Prime, compositions of pure emotion that had been banned for millennia. The enemy fleet's perfect geometry dissolved as ship after ship surrendered to transformation. The quantum anchor shattered in a cascade of prismatic light. Where there had been a weapon of absolute order, a new nebula was born, its swirling colors telling the story of two civilizations learning to dance together. Admiral Thanix's command ship alone maintained its rigid form, a last bastion of sterile perfection. His voice crackled across all channels. "You've destroyed everything we built." "No," Lyra responded. "We've remembered what we were meant to be. Look around you, Admiral. Order and chaos, perfection and evolution. They were never meant to be enemies. They're partners in the universe's greatest dance." As if in response to her words, the nebula's light embraced Thanix's ship. For a moment, it resisted, its crystalline hull straining to maintain its form. Then, like ice melting in spring, the living crystal awakened. The ship blossomed into something new, neither purely Artemisian nor human-influenced, but a unique expression of life's endless potential for change. One by one, the transformed ships took position around Earth. Their crews, both human and Artemisian, emerged forever changed. Where there had been division, now stood beings who understood both the beauty of perfection and the necessity of growth. David turned to Lyra, his eyes reflecting the cosmic light show. "What happens now?" She smiled, taking his hand as their ship pulsed with possibilities. Now we explore together. Perfect order taught us discipline. Human chaos taught us freedom. And together," she gestured to the transformed fleet, to the new nebula, to the endless stars beyond. "Together, we'll discover what wonders wait when we stop fearing change and start embracing evolution." The Harmony's crystal heart sang as Earth and Artemis Prime prepared to write the next chapter of their shared story. Not as teacher and student, not as perfect and flawed, but as partners in the greatest adventure of all, becoming more than they ever dreamed possible.